Under the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime, you can only challenge a foul against your team. 80, this seems a bit drastic. Is this a good move by the league?
I think it's a good move. And the main reason is because when you're talking about the last 2 minutes of a game and overtime, the game it comes down to inches. And you want to get it right. And I know if you're out there, you're saying, well, it's going to slow the game down even more. You talk about the replay booth and all these other things that are going on. But if you're a coach, you want an opportunity when you see something that you can, a call that can be changed, a goaltending call, a foul call, you see an opportunity to change that. I think you should be able to voice your opinion in that way.
Well, that's certainly something we're going to be interested to see how it's implemented next season. There's another issue that Adam Silver had to address. The news of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving going to Brooklyn leaked as soon as players were able to officially begin speaking with teams, right? And that was just the tip of the iceberg, suggesting rampant tampering. Commissioner Adam Silver also addressed that very issue at a press conference.
I think it's pointless at the end of the day to have rules that we can't enforce. I think it hurts the perception of integrity around the league if people say, well, you have that rule. And it's obvious that teams aren't fully complying, so why do you have it? And I think the sense of the room was we should revisit those rules, think about what does make sense for our teams so that ultimately we can create a level playing field among the teams and that the partner teams have confidence that that their competitors are adhering to the same set of rules they are.
So how do you slow down tampering, or as we would call it if you and I did it, communicating?
Right. It depends on what you're referring to, player to player or organization to player. Because if you're talking about player to player, there is no way of stopping relationships that have been built since AAU basketball. Organization to player is different. You and I were just talking about the fact that free agency opened at 6 o'clock Eastern. And before free agency even opened, you knew where some of the top stars in the NBA were going. We knew where Kevin Durant was going. We knew where Kemba Walker was going. We knew where Kyrie Irving was going. So how did these deals get done if free agency doesn't open until 6 Eastern?
That's a great question. I think we can get to the answer of that. See, there are two developing stories regarding Kevin Durant's commitment to the Brooklyn Nets. Sean Marks gathered his medical staff and asked who was in favor of committing a max contract to Kevin Durant. And every hand shot up despite that torn Achilles. That's the first story. The second story, back to our theme. Well, let's hear from the general manager himself.
The Instagram post that he put out, we were all sitting in the office and we all got that in real time with you guys. And we weren't even sure if we were getting a meeting that night or it was going to be a telephone conversation with him. I'm not going to sit here and tell them, well, we'd like to discuss a contract with you. And it's pretty much, we know what we're getting into.
Now, I get it. It's a new day, right? Social media, those sort of things. But it's a bit odd for a general manager to say, hey, I learned of a guy that we're committing over $140 million to, right, over 4 years, that I learned of that commitment on Instagram. Do you buy that?
I love Sean. I love Sean Marks. Played with him in New Orleans, stand-up guy. But I do have a difficult time believing that you found out Kevin Durant was joining your organization via social media. There had to be some sort of communication prior to, with his agent, with him. Obviously you communicated with Kyrie Irving because he signed as well. But, when you have a role player that joins your organization, okay, maybe you kind of find out last minute. When you're talking about one of the top 2 or 3 players in the league that is joining your organization, it's difficult to think, well, it came down to an Instagram post to find that out.
So that number for Kevin Durant actually over 160. So when you put that in perspective, that much money on the table, it seems as if there had to be a conversation before 6 o'clock, right? So where there's smoke, there's fire. You agree that they spoke to Kevin Durant before the official time. Right.
Maybe you spoke to him, but maybe at the time when you spoke to him, he didn't let you know that I'm joining your organization. Maybe he kind of left it up in the air. Well, I'm going to leave my options open. Maybe I'm going to go back to Golden State. I'm going to entertain other opportunities. But there was a conversation that was had, for sure.
Well, certainly Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, two of the best in the league, closers, if you will. With the first 2 picks in the draft sitting out Summer League with injuries, a lot of attention has been paid to the highest pick that's still on the court. 3rd overall pick, RJ Barrett, shot 7 for 33 in his first 2 games. He looked for a better performance against the Raptors, and I believe, AD, he did perform better. He remains aggressive.
Right.
Even when his shots getting blocked, when he misses a couple in a row. Do you like that about how he's playing?
I do like that. I'm not a big fan of Summer League. For a number of different reasons. But for RJ Barrett, he just has to continue to stay aggressive. He has to continue to be himself, but he also has to learn to play without the basketball. Because if you go back to high school, he was a number 1 player coming out. So he was used to having the ball in his hands. You go to Duke, he was used to having the ball in his hands. Now he's playing with other talent. Now he's playing with Kevin Knox. Now he's going to be playing with Dennis Smith Jr. Other guys that are used to having the basketball in their hands. So now you have to figure out other ways to be effective on the floor without dominating the ball.
Well, another guy that was effective on the floor for the Toronto Raptors, Chris Boucher, who scored 23 points. He played in just 28 games last year, looking for an opportunity there in Toronto. But let's get back to RJ Barrett. You see the numbers from this game on Tuesday night as compared to his first 2 games. Look, he got close to a triple-double, right? 17 points. It looks like, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. But the turnovers also way down.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, Chris, why I'm not a big fan of Summer League. For these guys, for guys that are 1, 2, 3 picks, for lottery players.
Explain, yep.
Because it's a no-win situation. So if RJ Barrett goes out here and he dominates the Summer League, you know what people say? Oh, it's just Summer League. It doesn't matter. He's not playing against anybody. Half of these guys won't be on NBA rosters, maybe. But if he goes out and he struggles, now people start to talk bad about him, like, they should have drafted someone else. I have seen and played with guys that have balled out in Summer League and struggled in the regular season. And I've seen and played with guys that have struggled in the Summer League and balled out in the regular season. So this is just a great experience for RJ Barrett to get some reps in before the regular season starts.
Absolutely. So best of luck to RJ Barrett and the New York Knicks. And they're in the middle of some interesting free agency news. Veteran guard Reggie Bullock is restructuring his deal with the Knicks to possibly make space for Marcus Morris. Originally, the former Celtic reportedly agreed to a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Spurs. However, the Knicks have offered him 1 year, $15 million. This according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. Very interesting developing situation with Marcus Morris.
Yeah, so when Adam Silver is talking about free agency and different things that can happen, you have to look at this situation for Marcus Morris. He basically told the San Antonio Spurs, you know what, I'm going to commit to you guys that 2-year, $20 million deal, and then he backs out because the Knicks offer him a 1-year, $15 million deal. But in that process, the Spurs restructured their contract and they trade away Davis Bertans. So now if you're Adam Silver, this is another component of free agency that you really have to pay attention to and look at kind of altering the rules here. I'm not sure what you can do, though.
Yeah, this seems like a sidebar considering DeAndre Jordan a few years ago when he accepted the deal from the Mavericks, then went back to the Clippers. That was a much bigger deal, but it's something we're starting to see in the offseason as well. Okay, 3-time champion Shaun Livingston, he's on the market. The 33-year-old was waived by the Golden State Warriors. Again, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, Livingston does not plan to retire and will pursue another opportunity in the league. Well, a late lottery pick has been on fire in Vegas for the Heat. Stay with us. You're watching Game Time.
Gator 18 and 19. With that, it's leg day. Tim Legler joining us now on SportsCenter. So, okay, let's play the what-if game. Where do you think, should Westbrook get traded, would be 2 good fits for him?
I think a couple of teams jump out. Detroit, to me, would be slightly ahead of the Miami Heat. When I look at the Detroit Pistons, I look at a team that's, number one, already got a couple of guys there, Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, so you're close. You've got veteran players who have star potential. And I think the fit with Blake Griffin and Russell Westbrook, the way they like to get up and down the floor, I think those guys actually would complement each other pretty well. They obviously need somebody to be an additional draw in that new building. Russell Westbrook would fit in well there. And I think the Miami Heat going down with Jimmy Butler, again, a guy that plays an ISO-type style like Jimmy Butler is not really going to affect Russell Westbrook that dramatically. He's not a catch-and-shoot player anyway. So I think you just have now a lot of star power, individual talent And I think the way that they're coached, the front office organization, the structure, and the stability is something that Russell Westbrook could thrive in. So I think either one of those two places, but I would probably pick Detroit if I picked one.
Okay, do either one of those two places become an instant contender if he joins the squad?
More relevant, more competitive, but when I think contender, I think can they win the East?
Right.
And I would say no. I don't think they're on that level with teams like Milwaukee, probably even Philadelphia, and maybe even Boston.
Okay, you do have something to say about the Western Conference. We're going to get into that. How now does he view the Clippers now that Kawhi Leonard has decided to join that landscape? That is coming up in just a little bit. But as far as the title odds per Caesars Sportsbook, well, the balance of power, obviously. In the West at this point, 5 of the 7 title favorites are out West, including the Clippers and Lakers as co-favorites. Tony, Mike, which LA team is better?
All right, Wilbon, which is the better LA team right now, the Clippers or the Lakers?
Tony, this is no slam dunk. Pardon the pun. I mean, this is tough. These two teams are loaded with both stars and really good ensemble players. Right now, because they were coming off a 48-win season already, and Doc Rivers has worked with a big part of this group, and he's Doc Rivers, I'm going to go with the Clippers because Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell, that foursome, Tony, is the best defense put together by one team since the 85 Bears. No one will score against them on a high percentage. Seriously, Leonard and George are Pippen and Jordan, or the closest thing to me we will have seen in the NBA, the two wings playing that kind of defense. And I know Rondo, Avery Bradley, speaking of good defenders, Quinn Cook, DeMarcus Cousins, Danny Green, these guys are a great ensemble to add to Davis and LeBron.
Yeah.
But the Clippers, Tony, 48 wins. They're not coming out of 13th place in the lottery. They're coming out of 48 wins in the playoffs.
All right, so I'm going to take sort of an overview here and talk about a conversation that you and I have had privately, in which I said there are teams that I'm not going to root for anymore. Now, I'm not saying that about the Lakers and the Clippers. I think it's very important to the NBA that the Los Angeles teams are good. I really do. I think it's important that the Knicks are better than they are, but they're not better than they are. But I will say this, that what has happened essentially overnight, this volcanic explosion of people moving, people under contract even, getting themselves out of contracts like Paul George and ending up, 2,500 miles away, has made me look at Utah and Denver differently.
Yeah.
Made me think that it might be fun to root for Utah and Denver and never to root for the Nets. And as much as I like the people in both Los Angeles teams and love Doc as you do, the acquisitiveness of both these teams is difficult for me now. It might be much different next year. But right
Tony,
now,
doesn't mean if I'm picking number of wins in the regular season and I'm going to pick either of the LA teams in the West, I might go Utah, Denver for regular season wins in the West.